welcome to the Creativity Conference Day One keynote in October 2023. It's really amazing to see everybody here. Many of you will know that we had quite a journey planning our in-person conference in Reykjavik in Iceland, and then they had 2,000 earthquakes in 48 hours, and we felt that that was more of a welcome than we perhaps should ask for. And so we've moved the conference online, which is turning out to be fantastic, because one of the consequences is that we're able to bring a lot more speakers and reach a wider audience, which is just phenomenal. I'm always very grateful when anybody agrees to listen to anything I have to say. And so I just want to acknowledge that I really appreciate you all investing your time and joining us for the conference here. I think those of you who've attended sessions this morning will have seen just how spectacular the sessions are, just absolutely brilliant sharing by our speakers. And we've got another 2.5 days of it, which is just going to be spectacular. So I've got a few things to share with you, a few things to show you. And I want to encourage you as much as possible to turn on your camera. And I want to reassure you that you are significantly more beautiful or handsome or dashing or spectacular than you imagine when you look at yourself in the mirror. So I want you to, if you're comfortable doing it, turn on your camera, and then we can all wave at each other and make funny faces and that kind of thing. Thank you. So as you can probably tell, you probably know already, I'm Maxim Jago. I'm the founder and director of the Creativity Conference. And I founded the Creativity Conference because I felt that it would be helpful for us to have an event that was just celebrating creativity as an intrinsic part of the human condition, as a recognition that, in a sense, each breath that you take, each moment that you make a new choice about what you want to come next, that is a creative act. It's a very interesting thing. I spent years studying Tai Chi, the ancient Chinese martial art, Tai Chi Chuan, in fact, the fighting form. And in my understanding is that in the Chinese, let's call it system of thought, we have this word qi. In Japan, they use the word ki. And the word means energy, it means life force, but it also means breath. And so there's this direct parallel between the idea of your life force energy and inhaling and exhaling, and that energy that you're bringing into your body, the oxygen acting as a catalyst and doing wonderful things with carbon dioxide. So as a ludicrous footnote to that, I saw recently, it's absolutely amazing, when people exercise, and because they get exercise, they get thinner, you have to wonder, where does the fat go? And it turns out that you exhale it. As you exercise, the energy gets converted into carbon dioxide. That's the process, and you breathe it out. So heavy breathing is probably a good thing. It's probably quite helpful. So the goal of the conference is not, if you've seen the marketing we've been putting out there, it's not about giving you tutorials on how to use software applications or how to paint a picture. We don't deal with things like branding and business development or any kind of transformation of your development as a person in step-by-step terms. What we do is we encourage our speakers to speak about inspiration. We encourage them to speak about purpose. And in a few minutes, I'm going to share a few thoughts that I have on what creativity is, It's something that I get interviewed every now and then and asked what I think creativity is, and nobody seems to laugh when I say I think it's a special kind of cheese, or it's a shoe design. Like nobody gets the joke. So I'm going to give you my working definition and my thoughts on what it means to be creative, what that really breaks down to. So again, this conference is an opportunity to explore the universality of creativity. It's an opportunity to discover that even if there are very, very tiny genetic differences between different members of our family as a species, in fact, relatively few differences between us and most living things. I don't know if you'd have looked this up, we're about 70% the same DNA as a fern in a forest, about 90% apparently the same DNA as a banana, which makes sense because my brain works like a plant first thing in the morning before I've had coffee. There's not much going on. Although there's more and more evidence to suggest that plants are thinking, feeling, and responsive, and in some way that we can't fully understand yet, conscious. So maybe there's some hope for me yet. But we have these very minor differences, and we dress those differences up culturally. So we speak different languages, we wear different clothes in different regions of the world. We have different music, different poetry, different dance, different food. But even those differences are just accentuating the variation around the world. Fundamentally, we're human. Our nonverbal signals are completely universal. We all shrug, we all smile, we all frown, and we all have the same fundamental needs to love, to be loved, to be causal agents, cause change in the world. And it's that aspect of the human condition that I really wanted us to explore with the conference. What does it mean, with Maslow's hierarchy? What does it mean to realize yourself, to self-realize, to be a change maker, to leave footprints in the snow, to cast a shadow? And we all hope, I think, that if there is such a thing as a soul, there's this idea that you die eventually, hopefully not for a very long time indeed, and then you're at your own funeral, and we all hope that the world is better because we were here. And the question is, how do we do that? And for me, one of the ways that we do that is with creative thinking, which I'll get to. And I hope that you're all going to enjoy hearing our speakers' perspectives on this. Now, the conference that we're hosting is only possible because of our sponsors. In fact, let me put up my my amazing PowerPoint here. So I just want to give a shout out to Dell and Intel and NVIDIA. We've spoken to a lot of different sponsors over the years that we've been running this conference. And these three joined us as sponsors for the very first conference. And they're the only ones that have ever actually come through with cash to support what we're doing. We've probably been in conversation with 70, 80, maybe 100 different potential sponsors, but Dell, Intel, and NVIDIA have really stood by us. They're the only ones that have actually supported financially what we're doing, which is pretty spectacular. Now, let me see if I can. I'm trying to get the keyboard shortcuts in Zoom here, and I'm kind of half getting it, but when it works. I also would like to give a shout out to Aware Now. We've partnered with Aware Now for a long time. It used to be called Awareness Ties. And Aware Now is a phenomenal organization that raises awareness for multiple causes. In fact, so many causes that they have a table of causes rather than a table of elements. And they have numerous ambassadors that raise awareness and share, again, this universal human condition, these fundamental needs that we have and the ways in which we serve them. And actually, the co-founder of Aware Now, Ali McGuire, is one of our phenomenal speakers. Ali is just great if you get a chance to hear her speak. She's just brilliant. And one of the ambassadors, Elizabeth Blake Thomas, is a speaker for the conference as well. Amazing filmmaker. So we really just think they're awesome and want to celebrate them. And I guess we're just doing sort of mutual marketing. It's like it's like giving each other hugs whenever we ask for them. It's a good thing. And I've got a little video to share with you here as well about awareness ties. Let's aware now, sorry, as it is now. Let's see if I can get this to come up.
We are aware. Now is the time to come together. Each of us has a cause we're tied to, and each of our causes are tied together by one cause that unites us all, the human cause. Awareness Ties is proud to present the table of causes, building blocks for raising awareness and support for the causes that tie us together. As we explore the science of our humanity, one cause and one story at a time, we share what makes us human. You are invited to share your selfie and your story to show support for your cause. Together, we are aware now.
That's just so fantastic. And by the by, Ali Maguire, I think, does all of the design work for that organization. There's a link on our homepage if you want to check them out. It's just phenomenal. And one of the projects that we're planning is something I've wanted to do since the beginning of the Creativity Conference, and we've never pulled it off yet. But I always had this idea that we would present what I call the compendium of creativity on our homepage. And Aware Now have offered to support that project by providing all the layout work and the technology. And my goal is for this to be something like a 400-page document with interviews with creatives and examples of work and inspiration and solutions and ways to overcome procrastination and maybe even recipes for a special kind of coffee. Not many people know this, but there's a martini named after me. There's a cocktail named after me. This is in my great attempt to get cast as James Bond. And so if you ever have an espresso martini sweetened with Saint Germain, that's a Jago martini. It's a long story. But I want to include recipes, ways to mix paints, and create your own pigments, approaches to timing and video editing. If anybody's read the amazing Lean Forward Moment, because Walter Murch has the blink of an eye as an editor, and Norman Hollin, who, if anybody knew him, was just a phenomenal mentor for so many of us, had the Lean Forward Moment. And I think anything that explains approaches to creative choices is going to go in the book. And I'm mentioning this to you now because I want to invite all of you to feel welcome to contribute content to this book. It's going to be a bit of a showcase and an opportunity to just have links to your work, links to your website, any projects that you're working on that you want to share with the world. And we'll update this. I'd like ultimately for it to end up being like a 2,000-page document full of people's creativity. And we want to host it totally for free. We should probably make people register for something, but I can't be bothered. I'm just going to make it available on the homepage and let people access it. I also want to mention, for those of you that might not have come across it yet, we have this creative community called, actually it's called The Creative Community. You can see I'm aiming for the universality of the human condition here with my super plain titles, The Creativity Conference and The Creative Community. It's totally free. There's a link on our homepage. We run it on a platform called Mighty Networks. And basically, it's a Facebook group, except that it's not on Facebook. I have to pay money for it. I should get a sponsor, really, but it's completely free. And we don't do any creepy tracking, and we don't steal your data. We don't sell your data to anybody, and we don't claim any ownership of your intellectual property. So we have about 850 members now, and it's a safe space, totally free, and you can just share the projects you're working on. And I don't mind if you advertise things, tickets for events, anything at all. Just go ahead and share on the Creative Community platform. So I welcome you to sign up to that. Now, I want to give a couple of thank yous before I get into my little talk. I would say maybe after the second year that we ran the Creativity Conference, the conference really took on a life of its own. We've hosted these in New York, Dubai, We're planning more conferences in Dubai, Tokyo, New York, possibly London, possibly LA, possibly Toronto. Anybody that will have us will set up shop. Thank you, Ruth. And I would say, I always said from the beginning, this is not the Maxim show, right? I give the day one keynote because, as we say in Britain sometimes, I'm Queenie. It's my conference and I'm doing the day one keynote. We have phenomenal keynotes coming up. We've got Paul Doherty, who led the development of the $1 trillion NEOM and later the Line Smart City in Saudi Arabia, and Mahbub Dennis, who works on very, very high international projects. And that's tomorrow.
Sorry to bother you. Oh, you're fine. Do you want me to respond to all these weird things that she needs?
Well, I hear someone speaking. I think that was Emily. Thank you, Emily. This is the power of being the host and being able to mute people. So we and on Thursday we have Mike Pell, who runs the innovation lab for Microsoft and the biggest hackathon in the world, 170, I think it is, 1,000 people. Aiden might be able to correct me, but it's a lot. And so I would say, I was always very keen to make sure I was not a speaker. So I don't have any sessions. I'm not on any panels. I'm really just trying to hold the space so that everybody can get together. My ego is big enough already. I do enough public speaking. It's okay. If anyone wants to meet up and have coffee and cake and conversation, I like the 5 C's. Go to a cafe, cake, conversation, good company, and what did I miss? Coffee, cake, conversation, good company, cafe. There you go. There's the 5. We can talk about anything you like, from quantum physics to the origins of the human psyche. It's very interesting. But I just wanted to hold the space, and I did not want this to be about me. And I would say at the end of the second year, that happened, that the conference is its own thing, and it lives in its own right. It's an entity. And I want to mention that there's just no way that this conference could exist if it wasn't for this extraordinary team that we have working on it. I particularly want to salute Aiden. Aiden Rode here is on the call. Aiden started out as a room host, I think it was, and has very quickly turned out to be just indispensable and a real man Friday for the conference. Most of you will have had some kind of interaction with him, and he just fixes things before I know they're broken. So absolutely phenomenal. Bravo to Aiden.
Maxim.
Hello, where's that? Who's that?
This is the Icelandic Viking. Frozen.
Welcome, Icelandic.
Just saying hi. You're from Iceland.
Hello, you'll be getting your own shout out as well. So I want to give a thank you to the room hosts we have this year. We've got Zero Snook, Maddie French, Laiz Lala Kogo, Carl Hilbrick, Danny Mez, and although you may or may not meet him, we've got George Blumenthal, who's our safety net backup host. He's going to be popping in and out of rooms and making sure things are okay. And the next on my list is indeed Einar Erlendsson. Einar and I spoke about this dream of hosting a creativity conference in Iceland for years, and it is, in fact, our local fixer in Iceland. We do still intend to host. We actually have to find a new venue now, but we are planning on bringing this to Iceland next year or the year after, and it'll be an in-person event. And Einar's been a close member of this team from the very beginning. And also John Jaglenski, who's helped us a lot. He's a speaker at the conference now as well. Amazing fellow, tons of experience. He's been helping us with our project management and planning. And Shay Dennison, I don't know if Shay's here, Shay has been coordinating a lot of the information that's made it possible for us to run the conference. And we've had a long list of people coming in and helping with the conference at different times. And, it really is those people working on the conference that make this possible. I've got a big mouth and I can give keynotes, but I'm not the one making sure that the machinery keeps turning, the emails get responded to, and the technology works. So I tip my cap to all of you working on the team. Thank you for being part of this. So with that said, I want to switch, if I may, and give you a few thoughts, not for too long, because I think we might all want another coffee before the sessions we have this afternoon. But I want to give you my thoughts on what creativity is. It's an interesting question, and it's a question that we've put to a few people. And thanks to Aidan, we have a little video. It's almost as if we planned it. Let's see if I can get this to come up for you. So here we go, defining creativity.
Creativity is a way of life. I don't think I could live without creating.
It's about believing in an idea so much that you turn it into some form of art.
And it doesn't matter if what you're bringing to the world is a painting or a song or a poem or a novel or just a great conversation.
Everything we've ever heard, books we have read, places we visited, people we have loved, all of that information that blends together in order for us to create something new.
You just need to stop and look at the world and realize how utterly amazing it is and how absolutely fabulous the other beings we share the world with are. And for me, creativity is the expression of that sense of wonder.
I never really looked at creativity as a necessity until only recently.
I have a need. It's not a choice. It's a need to create, and I create with everything that I do.
Creativity is the doing of going to what could be and bringing it into the realm of what is.
Creativity is not a skill set. It's just allowing yourself to be in a state of mind where you can have fun with what you're doing.
A way of you express yourself and you create things that you're proud of and that you fill with love.
And to create something that hopefully will have a lasting impression, not only for me, but for other people. It's a legacy. And creativity is that fuel that gives me the jam to go in any direction I want.
I would say that creativity is expanding your vision of something.
There's a form of creativity that means a feeling of freedom to me.
I think coming to terms with creativity is part of the human condition.
Creativity in many ways for me is almost like the material manifestation of what life is. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. Hopefully I'm trying to be a little better today than I was yesterday.
Each person alive in the world today is unique and is therefore perfect. And what they feel moved to bring to the world, the gifts that they want to share with the world, that self-realization, that fulfillment of their potential, is it. Right? That's creativity. We got the old ending on there that when we made this video. Wow. So I kind of stole, thank you, Jay. I kind of stole my own glory there by summing it up at the end in that video. But I'm going to get into it in a bit more detail. And I wanted to share this idea I touched on earlier on, that actually, you know, they say, if you're wondering if you finished what you came here to do, if you're still breathing, you're not done yet. So just breathe. And I began a meditation practice when I was 11, which is rather a lot of years ago now. And I've explored all sorts of different approaches to meditation and mindfulness practice. And honestly, one of the simplest and most effective forms of being present here now in the moment just seems to be not just breathing, but really being cognizant that you're breathing. Feel the air coming into your lungs. Feel it leaving your lungs. Feel the effect that that has on your body. Be present in the moment and be present in the experience. And that essentially is at the heart of so many mindfulness practices. But if you're wondering if you can't create, it might be because you're too preoccupied with things outside of yourself, things going on, things in the past, things in the future. We worry about both things that have already happened and therefore we can't change them. And we worry about things that have not yet happened, perhaps because we don't trust ourselves to make good decisions when the moment comes. So I think there's a lot of power in self-knowledge, in knowing yourself and trusting your own judgment. and but breathe, just breathe. You know, years ago, when I was getting my driving license, I was nervous because there was a car behind me, and it was driving very close, and I was speeding up, and my instructor said, why are you speeding up? And I was saying, there's this car behind me, and I'm nervous that they're going to be frustrated with me. And my instructor said, oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. I get why you would be doing that. Right. I'd like you to come to a stop in the middle of the road now, please. Come to a full stop, put on the parking brake, the handbrake, and turn on the emergency indicators. So the lights are blinking in the car, and turn off the engine. And so I did exactly what my instructor told me and sat in the middle of the road, blocking all of the traffic. And my instructor took a nice deep breath and said, how do you feel? And I said, oh, I feel okay, actually. I feel relaxed. Nobody was beeping their horns at me. Nobody was losing their temper. We just completely blocked the traffic on the road altogether. And and he said, great, okay, let's start the engine, let's go. And my instructor showed me that we imagine the pressures that we're under. We attach to them. We create these attachments to the pressures. And the only thing you really need to do on a regular basis, like the bare minimum, is to keep breathing. And you can release that stress, that obligation, that duty, that fear of doing enough. Breathing is enough. So that's my first thought. On that subject, actually, it's very interesting. Years ago, I knew an old psychiatrist friend of mine, and he used to say that if there is such a thing as sin, if we take this word sin, which doesn't have a meaning in every language, but if we take this concept of sin and think of what might constitute a sin, giving people false hope is one. Because the problem with false hope is if you give someone genuine hope, like they really believe that they have a reason to hope for some positive outcome, but it's actually false. You're not telling them the truth. That positive outcome is not going to come. And then later they find out that they were mistaken. The problem with that is that it's not just that they're disappointed in the outcome. They also learn that they can no longer trust their judgment because they believed that they knew what was going to happen. They believed that they were right to commit to this outcome, that this was worth the energy and the focus. And they found out that they were mistaken, which means that their sense of reality is a little bit unhinged. They get a cognitive dissonance. They get disillusioned, not just with the life that they're living, but with their own capacity to navigate life in positive ways. It's a terrible thing to do to somebody. And the problem, if you experience false hope, there is an antidote. And the antidote is a very realistic examination of the information you had available at the time that you made the choice. At the time, at the beginning, where you believed that you should have hope. If you look back very honestly, not at what you've learned since then, but what you knew at the time, every time you will discover that your judgment was good. Your judgment was good. The information you had was bad. And so we have this conflating, this mixing up of what we know and what we believe. We mix them up. But if you look back at what you knew when you had that hope, you would probably make the same decision again today. It's just that the information's changed. So you can release yourself from that punishment of that fear that you can't trust your decisions in the future. And I think that trust that you will make good decisions, not just to keep yourself safe, but also to have the impact that you want to have, to achieve the outcome you want to achieve. That in the moment, when it comes, we have to choose A or B, the left or right, turn on the light or turn it off. Whatever the choice is, it's important that you trust today that tomorrow you will steer your ship well, that you will know what to do. When you come to the rocks in your ship, you will know what to do to keep yourself safe and have the outcome that you want. And if you don't have that trust in your decision-making, I would argue that it's because you don't know yourself. You're not allowing yourself to know yourself. Because if you really knew yourself, you would know that your intentions are good and that you are just working on the basis of the understanding that you've got. Very powerful to give yourself, I recommend a 5-minute break every day from self-judgment. It's absolutely amazing. Just 5 minutes. You can set a timer. And for 5 minutes, you can examine who you are and what you're setting out to do in your life without approval or disapproval. Just 5. And you can tell your psyche, your brain, your fears, your inhibitions, your anxiety, your stress, I'll be right back to that judgment in 5 minutes. I know you want to do it right now, but I'll be right there. Just give me 5 minutes of examining just how wonderful you are, just how beautiful you are, just how good with a capital G you really are. And then after 5 minutes, you can get back at it, judging yourself and approving and disapproving and thinking, yeah, I was supposed to make a cup of tea for somebody, but I put the milk in before the tea instead of the tea before the milk, which is a big debate in Britain. I got that thing wrong, or I misnamed somebody, or I wanted to remember someone's name, but I forgot. Just be real. Just be real for 5 minutes. You're only human. And that's a very wonderful thing. So when I'm asked, and some of you I think will have heard me say this before, when I'm asked what creativity is, I usually say that it's any intentional decision. And I use that very broad term intentionally because I think that we tend to use the word to describe painting pictures or choreographing a dance or performing a piece of music, writing a poem. And those things are certainly the outcomes of creativity. But I would argue that they are not creativity itself. I would argue that creativity is the intentional decision that leads to that output, that outcome, that result, that future. And so, I was talking about decision making. I think that I'm going to get this quote wrong. It's like they say the past is a foreign country, they do things differently there. It's a foreign land where they do things differently. And the future is untrod territory. You don't remember the past accurately, and you don't imagine the future accurately. All you really have is this moment right now. Excuse me. You have this moment right now. And I'm grateful for you sharing it with me and the rest of us in this meeting. But this is all you've got, really. This is the only time that you're actually having an experience. And it's the only time that you're actually doing anything. This is it now. This is you doing something, listening, making notes, maybe coming up with rebuttals and disagreements and better jokes. But this is the moment in which you are actually living. And this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. And there's no value in taking ownership for the opinions you held 1 second ago, let alone 1 year ago. You're absolutely free to discard the point of view that you held in the past because you have new information, and that means new decisions. And that new information changes your perspective, it changes you, your new understanding. Even if the new information is internal, you come to a new understanding and you realize, oh, that's interesting. We have this debate in the UK about scone. What we call a scone, it's like a sort of savory, sweet bun thing. And you have it with a very special kind of cream called clotted cream, delicious. And jam, we call it jam. What do you call that? Jelly, I think, in America. And there's this debate, does the cream go on before the jam or the jam before the cream? This debate has gone on for maybe 100 years. And I'm a jam first, cream second guy. But the reason is that I like a massive, I see Aiden shaking his head. I just love the cream. So I have like a layer of jam, thank you very much, and then a wad load of cream. And so, but I might change my mind one day. I've noticed that Aiden tends to be right about culinary matters. So maybe he can persuade me another day. We'll see. Turns out I can't pronounce hummus properly. Because I think it's hummus, but we can have a vote on that later. Maybe we can do a poll. So so it's fine for you to change your mind. But in order for you to have a mind, in order for you to have an opinion and have a position on something, you have to first embrace what is real as best as you can. Now, I think we live in a culture that is intentionally bewildering. I think that our media, not just social media, but the news, TV shows, everything, they intentionally bewilder us so that we're unsure about who we are and what culture we live in and how we should relate to other people, what is appropriate, acceptable behavior. And that bewilderment makes it very difficult for you to be sure about what is real. And ultimately, it may be that you can only be sure of your intentions, not your actions, not your solutions, but your intentions. So it's worth spending some time every now and then asking yourself what your intentions really are, and then asking yourself whether you agree with them. Because you may no longer agree with the priorities that you have and the goals that you've set yourself. It's quite freeing to realize, actually, I don't think that anymore. And you can come out of that automated pattern thinking, that pattern behavior, and instead think about being in the moment and making fresh choices. But once you're clear, as much as you're able, about what is real, what is your reality, then you can begin to make decisions about that thing. Now, it might be that your reality is that you're a sculptor and you have a new piece of marble, and that marble has particular dimensions, a particular toughness, particular characteristics in the stone. And so that information will shape the decisions you make about the sculpture that you're going to produce from this slab of marble, from this block of marble. Whatever the information is, it could be you have a child and you're raising that child in a particular way. That child has a character. It could be that you're starting a new company, designing a new building. It could be that you're painting a picture with a new medium. Maybe you're usually working in acrylics and now you're working in oils. If you're real about what you have at your disposal, now you can make decisions about the future of that thing and then take action. You need to take action because I believe that we live in a universe where being is doing in pretty much every practical sense. So do something about the decision and know that you may not get the outcome that you were expecting. It might not be what you thought was going to happen, and that's okay. Physics is complicated. Feelings and emotions are complicated. People are complicated. And you might not have known all the facts. It's like that false hope thing. At the time, you didn't have the facts. Maybe you still don't have the facts. And that's okay. It's a roll of the dice. But the critical thing is that you're an active participant in your own life. You're not passively letting life happen to you. You're not just witnessing your life. You're not resenting that you were born and frustrated by how hard life is. And life can be very, very hard. It can be very, very painful. It can be a huge struggle. And that pain, that hardship, and that struggle is real. But most of our struggles are because of attachments that we've chosen. We want a new job, a new career, new clothes, some change in our world. If we didn't want anything, life would be pretty easy. But the critical thing for me, to bring it back to creativity, is that you are actively involved, actively participating in your own life. And by doing so, you're actively involved in the formation of your future self. And you have an opportunity to become intentionally, to self-realize and become the real you, whatever that is. One hopes that you like it. So there's a couple of things I want to mention as well about this that I think are really important because most creative projects are collaborative in one way or another. It's important to remember that you cannot know what anyone else is thinking. Now, there's a lot of convincing, very compelling evidence to suggest that telepathy and information exchange over a distance is real. But unless you've nailed it, unless you're like the prime CIA candidate in their PSYOPs experiments or whatever they call it, unless you are that thing, you really, really don't know what other people are thinking. And it's especially none of your business what people think of you. One of the deepest sources of fear and self-loathing that people often carry is rooted in what they imagine other people think about them. In fact, as my old psychologist friend used to say, most of our problems come from what we think other people think of us. You've no idea what they think of you. Let it go. And in the same way, you can't be responsible for another person. Now, if you're a parent and you have a child, or you're a guardian of a child, sure, there are some situations where you have a legal responsibility for people, but you can't be responsible for the way another person feels. It's impossible. You're certainly not responsible for the way you feel. Your feelings are experienced, not chosen. What you choose is what you do in response to your feelings. So how on earth could you be responsible for how another person feels? It doesn't make any sense. It's just a distraction from that process of you realizing yourself in the universe. And on the subject of other people and other things, there's a lovely, I'm a fan of a guy called Alan Watts. I think it was in the 50s, he brought Zen to the West. He's a very charismatic speaker. You can find videos of him online. And he describes the way that the universe has to be exactly the way it is for you to be exactly the way you are. And it's necessary that you are yourself. Now, what you're expressing, maybe you're a poet, maybe you write novels, maybe you design clothes, maybe you build furniture, maybe your creativity is being a mentor to people. Whatever it is that is the medium for that self-expression, for that self-realization, I hope that you find a way to express yourself authentically, because the universe needs you to be exactly you. You can't be someone else, and nobody else can be you. The universe needs exactly you. The universe needs each person in the world to be exactly who they are. And if you invest your energy in mimicking somebody else and being like somebody else, then you're failing the universe by not being yourself. And you'll fail, just as no one can really successfully be you. So the more you can authentically be yourself, the more you can truly self-realize and become your authentic self. So on that note, I would argue that perhaps creativity is being itself. Is it a skill? Is it an opinion? Is it a practice? Is it a thought practice? Maybe all of those things. But ultimately, if in a sense, being is doing, then creating is being. You are existing more. And it's such a privilege to be alive. It's such a privilege to exist. I've said many times, by any scientific standard, the chances of you being born and existing in the particular way that you do, the chances of that happening are zero by any scientific standard. Your existence is just impossible by any universal standard. And yet here you are, seeing, smelling, touching, drinking coffee, understanding dad jokes. Not everyone really understands the pure power and importance of dad jokes, but I'm a fan. Here you are defying physics. I mean, nobody really knows why there are things at all. No scientist has yet presented an explanation for why energy exists in the first place. And yet here we are. So as the Dalai Lama says, appreciation is the gateway to happiness. So thank you again for being invested in this idea of creativity and being invested in your life, your self-realization, because you have no idea, you cannot know the impact that you have on everybody you interact with by being authentically, truly you. It might be a passing comment at a bus stop somewhere where someone says they're thinking of writing a novel, and you shake them by the shoulders and say, you must write that novel. That novel is amazing. That concept you've got is brilliant. And then maybe they actually do it. And maybe that novel goes on to change the lives of millions. You cannot know the outcomes of the butterfly effect, but you are the butterfly. So those are my thoughts on what creativity is. And thank you so much for listening. We are now getting ready for our afternoon sessions. I want to remind you, please, to come to our social tonight. I think it starts at 7 o'clock New York time. And it's just an hour for an opportunity for you to share your thoughts, turn on your mic, and share your experience of the day. I see Will Tam's here. Hey, Will. We connected during one of those social events, and Will's now one of our speakers. Turns out Will's amazing. So if you get a chance to hear him speak, please jump into that. I also want to just flag our sessions coming up this afternoon. We've got a couple of spots of breaks, but we have Gudni Gunnarsson, who's going to be talking about conscious creativity and generosity being your source. Is fantastic. We also have Katie Rossler and John Thomas Dodson having a one-to-one interview. These one-to-one interviews are really special. We invite our speakers to interview each other and discover where there are overlaps in their creative discipline. Absolutely phenomenal. The poetry that emerges, the explosions that come out of that. We have Lee White, phenomenal, talking about living in flow. And I'm sure many of you have heard the importance of the flow state for creativity. We have Nikki Skeen. Nikki's amazing, very closely involved with all sorts of organizations, talking about generative creativity. It's going to be a powerful talk. And Sitara Fay, we had a snafu with our schedule this morning. So anybody that was hoping to hear Sitara speak this morning, we've managed to reschedule her talk. She's going to be talking about superpowered business and how to activate your innate intuitive connection to supercharge your business growth. This idea of being governed by intuition and that wider, greater mind that somehow we all seem to be connected to. And with that, all that remains is for me to thank you again for joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon. I see Jay has his dad jokes book. You got to bring it tonight, Jay. You got to bring that this evening. We can have a dad joke off or whatever you call it. It's like a dance off. That's brilliant. Enjoy the rest of the conference. You rock. And thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.